Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Visual Learning and Discovery, Building the Ultimate Research Brain. My name is Shelley Haydock, and I'm co-hosting today's webinar with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're excited today, not only because we're going to be sharing some great examples of brain databases with you. We're going to be creating a few of them from scratch just to share with you some of the features of the brain that can help you get started quickly and actually expedite your research process. So a lot of great features and functionality to share with you today.
Right. And one of the other things that's very cool is we are in a rapid development period. I know a lot of you attended our last webinar on AI and Matt's 101s. And so there are many ways to create your brain. You grab your own knowledge, grab knowledge from the web. You can use our AI feature, or you can leave it aside. So we're going to kind of cover a broad range, and I'm going to start with a number of examples, and then we're going to go a little bit more specific. But if you're more interested in seeing how to create your own notes for studying for university, or using AI to really blow out a new brain for a project you're working on, type that into the Q&A, and midway towards the session we're going to kind of leave it a little bit more fluid so that we can really address attendees' specific needs. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So this particular brain that I have on my screen is our teaching and learning brain. And one of the advantages of the brain is that you have a visual component to your knowledge base. And the thing about this particular webinar that I love is a lot of people don't realize that the brain, everyone gets that it's a no limits knowledge base. Yes, you can certainly dump and funnel and put literally everything and anything in your brain. And that's what does make it so powerful as a research brain. But the cool thing about that is the learning process and the visualization that sort of lets you rise above the information deluge that you might experience on your corporate file drive or just Googling stuff, and enabling you to make connections and create your own synthesis of the information, which in essence is your curated view, your perspective on the knowledge. And that's pretty powerful as a researcher, as a student, just as an individual, a human being who's trying to learn and make sense of their business world or their world around them. And also for teachers, we have a lot of teachers and university professors on the call. I know you guys are all just getting started. So I'm going to start off with the teaching brain just to kind of give you an outline of how information can come together. So let me just try and hide this menu. Okay, I'm going to move my there. Okay, so this particular brain is a very broad brain on different topics. So we've got hot topics in this brain, and clicking on any thought in the brain is going to trigger all related pieces of information. So if I want to go ahead and click on biology and life sciences, this particular subject can be a hot topic of mine that I'm studying, but it's also under science. And, I have a jump thought to, a very cool book called The Voyage of the Beetle, which was actually written by Charles Darwin. So in kind of building and visualizing information, it sort of compresses the time to knowledge. So I can think about all these things, but when I look at them in a way that visually relates relationships, there's a new level of understanding and insight that sort of frees your mind to go ahead and take more control on the information you're looking at. So this particular thought in this brain has content attached. So pieces of information, any piece of information can have a web page, a file, a note. So this particular book is, of course, written by Charles Darwin. So I have Charles Darwin as a parent, and I can have stuff below, anything I want to type about this particular, let's say, what is the next evolution for humans? So this is where you can come in and not only add knowledge, but I love to ask questions in my brain. You can ask questions in your brain, and depending on how you want to answer them, that's up to you. You can drag and drop documents. You can go out and do a Google search. I can come in here and type a note about where we think we are heading, hopefully in a good place. Cautiously optimistic. Okay, sorry, I'm typing and looking at my webcam, which is never amazing, but you can see, and there's a lot more you can do with notes. We're gonna get to backlinks and hyperlinks within notes, but just real quick, how I go from a piece of information. I've got an idea in my head about our next phase of evolution, because we're all big thinkers and we got to put it somewhere. And here we are, we're typing in notes. The other thing that's really cool is I have a built-in search web feature. So if I want to go out to the web and launch a search on what I'm thinking about, I can just use that particular tool, which I love. There's all kinds of things about us getting taller or whatever. But then there's some interesting articles that I might want to add. And one of the nice things about TheBrain is it gives you the freedom to actually put things away. There's so much information out there. You might stumble across an amazing article when you're, waiting in line at the airport to check in, when you're picking your kid up from school, whatever, but you don't necessarily have time to read it. So you can actually save that article on your mobile phone in BrainBox, come in and add it later, or drag it if you're on your desktop and just in a meeting but focused on other things, drag and drop it into your brain, and then you've got that piece of knowledge to add and assimilate and continue to build on whenever you feel like the time is right to do that. So in this particular case, I'm just going to go ahead and drag and drop the future of evolution into my brain, and you can see that creates a link. Now I could put this under anything else, and you can see that we also have a nice content preview, and it loads that article, so you get a really nice preview. And I just want to point this out for teachers and professors, because we actually have, for instance, Dr. Craig Baker from Joint Council of Cardiothoracic Surgery, where we've got an amazing brain for all USC heart surgeons, where they have sort of a matrix of all their knowledge, and then videos. Some of them are even YouTube videos of how to perform these surgical techniques. It's really quite brilliant and interesting. So there's a really nice interaction between your visualization, your guided view, that perspective you have of the knowledge, and then the actual content. So that's the other thing. We're not a static map for some of the newer users on the call. What you really want is you want to have your content there. And that's really nice, particularly if you want to share that knowledge. So just to, since we're talking about sharing, let me go to my online section, and I just want to show you my brain access and sharing for this particular brain. So this brain is actually public. It's our teaching and learning brain. Any of you are welcome to use it as a template. It's got a lot of stuff in it. But I also have people. I've got Chase as a reader. I've got Matt as administrator, Jay as a reader. Maybe I actually want to go ahead, if I want to change and give Jay the ability to come in here and work with me on, where humans are going to evolve. We can go ahead and do that. And we can actually save that. And that, of course, updates. So what gets interesting is not only when you are creating your own knowledge, but when you share that knowledge with other people as well. So the other thing that I can do is I can go ahead and look at these thoughts in various views. So if I want to expand all or arrange my thoughts or go into outline view, I actually get an outline of my knowledge, and I can actually adjust the content here. And I'm going to actually adjust the font size as well. So there's different views that can be very interesting. So let me go ahead, and I'm just playing now with my font size. I'm going to take that down a lot. And now I'm in the United States government section of this brain. And one of the nice things about the brain is the ability to granularly categorize pieces of knowledge by the parent-child and jump relationships, but also by tags and thought types. So let me just switch back to normal view, and we'll return to outline later when I can show you how to visualize some very interesting technologies, taxonomies, I mean, rather. But what I want to do is just kind of show you the section in political science. So this particular area, we have the United States government, and we obviously have had a lot of presidents, and we'll continue to have many presidents in the future. But in this case, we have, of course, United States presidents, and then the child thoughts are the actual presidents of the United States. They have various thought types on them. As you can see, blue is Democrat, red is Republican, and there's also a Federalist Party that's in yellow. And let me just go ahead and have it our singular view so you can kind of see the way this looks. So very many ways to kind of slice and dice information. So rather than me creating an extra child thought here in how I'm displaying my information, I'm actually using some thought types. And in this case, things can be organized in order of preference by number, or I can actually come in here and arrange these thoughts by name. And rather than be by political party affiliation, now they're going in a chronological order from George Washington all the way to Joe Biden. And you can add images, which is really nice as well, to really help you kind of associate things with the content. And this is called a thought type. So a thought type enables you to further distinguish a piece of information. So we've got parent, child, and jump, things that are related to my active thought, but not necessarily a subcategory. And now I've got a typology on top of that. Another interesting area, I'm going to go up to so now I'm navigating back up to the top of my brain, is I'm going to go into the science section and go into biology and life sciences. And here's another taxonomy that we visualized in the brain. It's living things. So rather than just having a static chart, in this case, we've actually got the animal kingdom mapped out with thought types. So kingdom is a thought type, phylum. And we are, of course, phylum chordata as humans. And then we can go into the class of species, which is mammals. So in this particular case, we've got what would normally be a static chart represented as the thought. So I can sort of traverse through that structural segment of knowledge. But what's interesting is the actual knowledge can then also be stored in your taxonomy. So in this case, you've got, let's just go, and this is a very simple example, dogs and cats, we've got our picture, but I can come in and add any more information here as a note. You can see I have a Word document here on the ocelot cat. I've got some interesting pictures on, pumas and domestic animals. If I want to come in and actually start a document, I can do that as well. Just gonna minimize or move my webcam here. I can take a note. I can go ahead and change the name of a thought, or I can come and actually add a document if I want to go ahead and do that, a local URL or create anything and continue to build. The other thing that I can do is drag and drop information into my brain. I'm actually going to move over to my writer's brain now, so you can get a sense of a sort of different brain. This particular brain I share with a number of writers. And in this particular brain, I have my different writing projects. So if I have a new project that I want to add or relate to something else, all I have to do is drag and drop that from my desktop. So let me just go ahead and get some documents here. And in this case, I have a product brochure outline that I'm actually working on. And I can go ahead and add that and drop that into my brain. So let me just go ahead and do that. Oh, I might have to adjust the folder setting, but you can see that I've got some other documents here. So I'll just go ahead and go into this corporate section here, and I can launch that document and continue to work on it and save that and do versioning in the brain as well. So if you're doing writing projects or have a lot of different files that you want to save, we have a very nice file content editor, and you can also go ahead and drag and drop all your folders and documents into the brain. Now, I'm going to actually go ahead and go to my web client here. So you can see what these brains look like online. And I'm going to go to my teaching and learning brain, and I'm actually going to go ahead and add some content online. So I've got a section here on interesting books, and I'm going to build this area out further. I'm actually going to do that using AI. So we're going to get a little bit more into this. AI is a newer feature for those of you, but I might want to be researching stuff for children. So I'm going to take a new search, and I'm going to type in children's classic books for elementary students. So notice I have a thought name, but I'm actually taking the topic name and being as specific as I need to be about that. And let's see. Maybe I'll change this to say kids. Okay. And now there's a couple ways to do this. If I want to generate categories to build a taxonomy, I'm going to select categories. List actually gives me specific instances of a category. So I'm going to go ahead and generate a thought structure automatically here. And it might take a couple minutes. And I have all kinds of books in this brain for different things I'm researching and for my students, but I'm going to get a little boost from AI for the kids section. So let's go ahead and look. And in this case, you can see it's not bad. I have the ability to accept, redo, or discard these changes. And in this case, the Little Prince, Lion, Witch in the Wardrobe, Tom Sawyer. I mean, I could have thought of all these, but I really just want like a classic literature section for the elementary students. I'm actually going to go ahead and accept these changes. And, from here, I can go ahead and take a note. You can see I can set the number of categories. I can also go back to AI and specify a note. And I can also go ahead and add information about my lesson plan. This is a great book for our mid-grade students. There. And so right now I'm actually using the web client. This will sync back to my desktop. The AI feature is available online on your online brain. And we actually are going to be putting that as a desktop feature as well in the next release of the brain that should be out shortly. But for now, you can use that online to kind of build and grow. And this is kind of an interesting component. If I look at other sections in my brain, I can continue to build and grow. So I think with that, that's sort of a broad overview of the brain for research.
There's my Shakespeare brain. So this is the brain that I'm going to be starting out in today. And, there's so many different types of research projects that people may be working on. There's hundreds of people on today's calls. We've got some really, really great questions coming in. And with hundreds of different people, there's hundreds of different research topics. So we're trying to give you a great sort of example of some of the many different features within the brain that you can use regardless of what your topic or your focus may be. So this particular brain is a little bit more recreational. I'm no rogue scholar on Shakespeare by any means. Anyone can go out to the web and do a search for the complete works of Shakespeare and find them. They are available. They're not copyrighted. So they're available all across the web. So nothing new by including the complete works of Shakespeare in this particular brain, but I've added my own research along the way. I don't want to just read play after play after play. I do, but but I also want to know more about that play. When did Shakespeare write it? Why did he write it? What was going on in England? During those times, what was life like, what were the politics of the day, and so forth. So let me just take you on a quick tour of this brain. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this brain contains the complete works of Shakespeare. Every word he ever is known to have written is here. I've got them broken down into all of his different comedies, his poetry, his sonnets. I think there's 154 sonnets. They're all here. But more importantly, I can go into a particular play that I really like, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And I've got a technical study of his different characters. And this starts to get a little fun for me because I've got Aegeus, who's the father of Hermia. Now, this question came up specifically, Shelley, while you were demoed. Directional links and link labels. Yes, we can also define the relationships between two specific thoughts. And I think that's really important, particularly for research. Regardless of what your research may be, chemistry, one element affects another element in one specific direction, but not the other. Or you want to define how the two people that you're reviewing are related to one another, or how a document refers to a company, what the relationship is. Here we can see Aegeus is the father of Hermia. And to create these, we can simply double click on a link between two thoughts and type out a label. You can also type out a directional label. So I'm going to actually turn this into a one-way link. And this is particularly interesting because once you have a one-way link turned on, you won't see it when coming from the other direction. So keep that in mind. As soon as I click away, it's going to refresh, and this becomes a one-way link. So it's only activated or visible coming in from one direction, from Aegeus to Hermia, which I just did. So the link is still there. Hermia, as we can see, loves Lysander. Lysander loves Helena. Helena loves Demetrius. This is sort of the lover's triangle. It's more of a square in this case. Demetrius loves Hermia. And notice that we do not see Hermia's father when we're on the Hermia link. That's because we made that a one-way link. We only see it when we come in from one direction. It's a bit more of an advanced feature within the brain that you can play around with, but it really comes into effect, particularly for me, for sometimes, I need to know, all the people that used to work for a particular company. However, when I'm on that person's thought, I don't need to know their work history and what companies they work for. If I'm researching the company, I want to know if I know anyone that was once an employee there. So there's many different ways that feature can be used. And of course, if we go all the way back to my Midsummer Night's Dream character study, Aegeus, the one-way link is there. We still see Hermia because we're coming from that direction. So that's a feature for your research that you can really, really utilize to, again, further define your information within your brain and your relationship between two topics, whatever that relationship may be. Very, very powerful research functionality when used properly. Another one that I want to share with you in this particular brain, it really comes in handy. I'm going all the way back up to... And as you can see, I also classify, I've got multiple parent thoughts, another great feature for research. I know that A Midsummer Night's Dream is not only one of his comedies, it falls under one of my categories, my favorites, but also he wrote this when he worked for the Lord Chamberlain at the time. So I can review all of the different plays when they were written sort of in his time span. And that becomes particularly effective if you go to retirement. The final 3 plays that Shakespeare ever wrote, his final play is The Tempest. Now, in The Tempest, if you're familiar, there's a character, Prospero. And at the end of the play, Prospero bids farewell to the audience, actually. He's on his way off to a new unknown adventure, in this case, on a ship across the world into the unknown. It's sort of Shakespeare's way of saying farewell to the stage and maybe even farewell to life. He died soon after. So there's a lot of Shakespeare in Prospero, and you really don't capture that or understand it unless, again, the research is there for you to further understand it. So I love looking at all of the different works of Shakespeare through the timeline in which he wrote them. That's very valuable to me as well, to capture that information. But here's the other feature that I wanted to share with you, a feature built into the brain called backlinks and mentions. Incredibly powerful tool for research brains, because the more often you use a word or use a phrase and it shows up, you can start to discover relationships in the data that you're gathering that your own organic brain didn't pick up on. And I'll show you exactly what I mean. I've got a resources area of my brain where I keep track of better understanding of iambic pentameter, the writing style of Shakespeare, even fun things, his insult generator. He was great at insulting people and the people never even knew. Related authors, there's his timeline, Shakespeare in the News. Here is my dictionary that I'm putting together of all the words that anytime I come to a word, I don't understand what it is, I add it into my dictionary, I do a little research, and I can capitalize on that knowledge and preserve that knowledge at a later date. I might be reading a play a year from now, 2 years from now. I started this brain well over 10 years ago. I don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel. And here's the example I'll use. Shakespeare is known to have actually invented over 1,700 words. Words that were never found previously in writing. There's no trace of them in history until it showed up in a Shakespearean play. And some of them are very common words that you may know of: critical, courtship, bloody. The word bloody had never been used before. Here's the one that I particularly like: monumental. You see, I did a search on this one earlier. I'm going to close that. I'll come back to it later. Monumental. Now, I have a misconception of what this word means. Monumental to me means huge or gigantic. A redwood tree in California is monumental. But when I did my research, I'm actually gonna, sorry, let me point this out. It's underlined in blue, which means the word monumental appears as a thought elsewhere in my brain. So it's down in my dictionary. I can right click on any word that I find or notice in my notes, underlined in blue, and either make a permanent link to that thought, or in this case, I just want to activate it. So here's the word monumental, falls under M in my dictionary. It actually means ancestral or memorial. So it's being used in 5 different instances in this particular brain. Here's All's Well That Ends Well, a very sort of famous, it's a comedy tragedy play. It's one of those plays that don't fall in line with the specific category. But regardless, given her his monumental ring and thinks himself blah, blah, blah. So it just takes the line where that monumental appears. I would normally look at this as like he gave her a gigantic ring, like a Super Bowl ring, large and ornamental. But now I know it's ancestral, it's memorial. That's probably an engagement ring he's referring to. So I can click and go directly to the thought where monumental is being referenced. I'll now do a search for the word monumental, and there I can go directly to the word in this very, very long play. and see the full line. He hath given her his monumental ring, so it's ancestral ring, probably an engagement ring, and thinks himself made. So this means like, oh, he thinks he's a really big deal because he has proposed to this lady that's sort of above his class. And it just gives greater context. I don't need to go back to an actual dictionary. I've got my own dictionary in the same brain where I'm keeping track of this information. And I can go down below and just find another word underlined in blue. Here's one: proper. In his proper stream overflows himself. Well, proper stream meaning a real stream, like a river. I'm going to go and activate proper and see that that means handsome, or handsome but deceitful. That's very, very valuable information. So I think that falls into line with what I'm thinking. He proposed to a girl above his class. He thinks he's really fantastic, but there's something going on. He's deceitful. I understand a little bit more of the play. And look at this. I'm understanding that proper is being used 72 times throughout all of Shakespeare's works. And this is what I wanted to point out. If you are doing research brain, you're utilizing this feature, which is built right into the brain of backlinks and mentions. Maybe you're a chemist and you find that the word, argon is appearing again and again throughout all of your research. That can actually dictate where your next step goes. What are you going to start putting more of your focus on? Wow, this word, this chemical, this ingredient, this company, this person, whatever the case may be, it's showing up again and again. I need to recognize that, pay more attention to it in my research, and start focusing on that particular topic within my brain, whatever the content may be. So that's a little bit of a fun brain that I wanted to share with you. Again, the question did come up: will these brains be made available? Yes, we'll not only be sharing a recording of today's webinar, but the brains that Shelly and I have open will be made available as well. The next brain that I want to share with you is simply called the note-taking brain. And the note-taking brain is all about the proper way of taking notes. People think of the brain as being mind mapping software. Some people think of the brain as note-taking software. It's information management, whether the information you're gathering is made valuable by the visualization within the Plex, or the notes that you're taking and the content and research and files and documents that you're putting into your brain. It's really what becomes important to you. But taking great notes, there's a real science to that. And if you do any research in taking notes, you'll probably see these 5 different methodologies appear from time to time. And we've created this brain to really dive in depth about the different types of sort of from basic to more advanced note-taking capabilities that exist. So I'm going to actually start off with the Cornell note-taking style, or Cornell note-taking system. Very, very popular note-taking system. My kids use it in high school. Now I've got one son in college that uses the Cornell note-taking system. You can learn all about it here. I won't go through it step by step, but a basic overview is that it looks sort of like this. You've got your cue or your questions, your quick answer to those questions, and a final summary down below, and a place to keep the date and the topic that you're researching. So to put this into a real world example, should we de-extinct the Tasmanian tiger? So as you can see, I've got some different questions. Maybe I sat in on a biology lecture. Is it truly extinct? That's a question we need to know about. And I've got some facts and details there. Can we bring it back? Do we have the technology? Should we bring it back? What are the caveats to doing so? And I've got specific examples and answers to each. And then finally, down below, the summary. And in this case, it's sort of it's not all factual information. It's a decision or a personal preference. Do you think it should be brought back? The environment would benefit, according to my research here, from reintroducing the Tasmanian tiger into its native habitat. And if more questions come up along the way, as you can see, we can edit. Maybe the question is there a cultural reason why it should or shouldn't come back as well. Here, I'm an American scientist going to Australia and reintroducing a predator that hasn't existed for 50 to maybe 100 years. So that's something that needs to be researched as well. And I can add those notes along the way. Now, in this brain, should you choose to download a copy of this brain or view it online, notice that we've got a template. So you can simply gather your template. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create a new brain file, and I'll just say create brain. And my new brain is going to be on Mars, for example. So I'll say, okay. And oh my goodness, the brain randomly selects one of the different themes, and it selected my space theme. So that's just Kismet at play. Thank you, brain, for giving me a relevant wallpaper background, because I certainly have a variety. And now I'll create my new thought. Should we go there? So this is going to be the start of my research. You know, I sit in a class, a lecture. I can just paste that. I've got that on my clipboard. So I just paste in my Cornell note and add the current date and time, Control D, or I can go up to Insert Date and Time in my research brain. Topic, should we go to Mars? And I'll capitalize that. So what are the pros and cons? First, I start researching the cost. I have no idea what the cost is. I'll say it's 1 billion per person. Then I have to start looking at sustainability of staying there, how much it costs to stay over time per day, cost per day. Needs to be researched. My next question, and this is just utilizing the table feature in the brain, which is what I'm going to focus on a little bit right now. I click on plus on the right hand side, and I create a new row down below. If I did, Cornell note is specifically 2 columns. If I did want to create another column, I can click on the plus down below, or I can select a column and just click on delete to remove that column. And insert table. Oh, I'm in a table, so it's not going to let me insert a table within a table. I'll go down below, insert table. We can do a new table from scratch as large as we want, and you can custom color code your tables. So I click on the little grid icon and click on table, and we can say, we can really meticulously one by one select individual colors that we want appearing within the table, or down below, we've got some predefined sort of patterns, pre-built styles available for your tables as well. So tables are a great way to really structure the research that you're putting into your brain. You can copy and paste from Excel spreadsheets, existing tables into the brain as well. This is simply a table format that is pre-built to emulate the Cornell note-taking system. So we've got our costs, we've got our risks, and then we'll have another area for our benefits. And, you know, whatever my summary is of what I've learned. The great thing about these is that you can copy and paste some type of whatever your structure for notes are. If they're Cornell note-taking systems, specific table systems. I'm going to jump now back to the note-taking brain because there is another popular system, which is called the charting method. And here's our template for the charting method. You've got topic 1, topic 2, so a very basic chart. And here's an example. This example is on different, you know, just history research, eras within Earth. So late, I'm not even going to try and pronounce all of these. Mesozoic, I know I can pronounce, Cenozoic, and so forth. And the millions of years ago, the periods and the events that happened. And then I can keep key species that were discovered there, species that died out during those eras in Earth's history, and so forth. So another great way of taking notes that sort of takes the Corel notes a little bit further, a little bit deeper Corel note would typically be just, all about the late Proterozoic, rather than having all of these on individual, they'd be all on individual notes rather than all grouped together in one table. So that's another great example. The last one that I want to share with you before I get into some more features of artificial intelligence within the brain is the sentence method. Not the sentence method, excuse me, the outline method. The outline method is great for a number of reasons. Number one, you already know what an outline is. We all know what an outline is. I hope we do. The great thing about putting outlines in the brain is you can utilize up above the titles, subtitles, and headers to really define specific points within the outlines that you're creating for your research, whatever this research may be. Here is my example, which is Edgar Allan Poe. So I've got a couple of headers up above, life overview, and then specifically his publishing career. Let's say I'm taking a class on American literature, and we've got a whole week's worth of research on Edgar Allan Poe. I create my outline on day one. These are key moments in Edgar Allan Poe's life. Now I need to start focusing on each phase, step by step, his early family life, which wasn't so great and maybe led to why he wrote such dark and ominous stories. So utilizing this outline feature in my notes, I can actually collapse different paragraphs or different groupings of thoughts. So now I'm just specifically focused on his early life. I've collapsed publishing career and his marriage to his cousin and his U.S. Army career and so forth. So I'm just focusing on those bits of content. Here's another great feature when utilizing outlines within the brain is that you can also insert, if your outline is incredibly long, you can insert a table of contents. So at the very top of my brain, I will click on insert, and I can insert a table of contents. And so I can get directly to key components, key locations within the brain. I want to go directly to his publishing career. Boom, I go directly to that spot. Now, this is a very, very small outline. So I only have three headers, the subject up above, and then life overview and publishing. So my outline is very small. If this is an extensive outline of some research that you're doing, a table of contents within that area can be incredibly beneficial to help you navigate through a really deep, really extensive note. And the final component with the table of contents is, and the great thing about creating a table of contents within the brain is that now if I really want to break this down, and so I create individual thoughts for all of these different categories, and I really go in depth to when he sailed to the UK in 1815, in depth for when he worked in America for the Saturday Evening Post or his novels and so forth. I am now going to select this entire outline. I'll just copy this. Or here, maybe I'll just start with this. I'm going to start small, just the early life, copy, and I'm going to go back into my Mars brain. No relevance here from Mars to Edgar Allan Poe.
Matt, real quick, people
Yes.
are wondering if the Cornell brain is public. I think it is.
It certainly is.
Put
Yes.
it in the Q&A panel after and tweet that one out. Sorry, it's just a
Absolutely.
quick question someone had.
Yes, it
Okay.
absolutely is. And I'll show you how you can get to the public URL as well in a brain, because sometimes you want to share your research with others. We can cover that as well.
Okay.
So here, please disregard that this started out as a Mars brain. Now I'm focused on Edgar Allan Poe. I've copied that outline, very basic outline, to my clipboard. And when I right click in the Plex, the brain knows that I have an outline pattern on my clipboard. I can paste that in. And now we can go right into Edgar Allan Poe's early life. Each separate line below early life is its own thought. An outline format, tab delineated outline format, lends itself very well for copying and pasting into the brain. If you receive a digital syllabus of a class you're studying, if you just go into a note and create a basic outline of the research that you are going to do for bringing back the Tasmanian tiger, you can then copy that outline, paste it into the Plex, and create individual notes or individual thoughts for each individual line of that outline. Very, very powerful tool and a way to populate, again, research brains very, very quickly. And so now we're going to sync this brain to the cloud. While that's syncing, it's going to go really quickly because it's a tiny brain. I'm going to go back up to my note-taking brain and share with everyone. I'll just go to this home thought. It's a really, really great, really resourceful brain. And there's templates and videos for each of these 5 different note-taking methods. So you can find the one that works for you. And watch a full video and see a template and see an example. We, took each individual style and just took a random subject matter. You've seen some of them are completely wild. I think one of them is on how to make chicken soup. But we used that style to outline that process or that research that was done. Now, to share this brain, I'm going to click on online and open up, now that I've synced it up to the Brain cloud, brain access and sharing. Here's the public URL for this particular brain. You can see a few of us at the Brain Technologies have access to this brain. We utilize TeamBrain, multiple people interacting with the same brain database. So we use the brains collaboratively. If you want to know more about TeamBrain, you can learn about that on our website at thebrain.com. But I've allowed public access, which means anyone with this URL, and you can just jot that down right now if you'd like. But again, we'll include this in our thank you emails at the end of the webinar today that you receive along with a recording. You can visit this brain online with that particular URL. And you can do that with any brain that you sync. When you create a brain, it's absolutely private. It's owned by you and your account. You can sync it to the cloud. It's still private. You have to be able to log into your account to get to that brain. You need to make it publicly accessible if you're going to share this brain just via the URL with other users, or if you add email addresses of other people that use the brain, they can have a local read-only copy of this brain as well. And if you're using TeamBrain, you can make others editors and administrators. So let's go ahead and go online. I'm going to utilize this Mars brain that I just created now, and I'm going to click on online and open this thought in the web client. So notice that it is going to have me, I am actually already logged in, so I can edit this brain online. And let's go ahead and revisit that AI feature, because I've got a couple of specific scenarios that I want to share with you. Should we go there? Let's actually make it specific.
Yes, that's great, because I only showed lists because I love using AI for lists. But we didn't really get to any how to build from ground up with the categories. So there were a few questions on that.
Yes, great, great. So I'll create a new thought. Should humans go to Mars? Now, of course, I can go out to, Shelly and I can go out and start Googling everything that we can think of. Should we go to Mars? Well, let's see. The air is going to be, we have to bring our own air, bring our own water, bring our own food. There's some obvious things. What are we not considering? And using AI in your brain can be used in many different scenarios. I used to think of AI, I share this analogy often. I used to think of AI as a tool. Oh, let's challenge ChatGPT and see if it can answer this difficult question. And it was sort of fun. Now that AI has been integrated into the brain through the web client currently, it's become a tool for me. It expedites my research. It expedites note creation. And it also informs me on what I might not be considering. Yes, I could do my research. It's going to take a lot of time. Let's expedite the process. And then I can start focusing on what I really want to laser, hone in on this particular topic. So should humans go to Mars? Let's ask AI to give us a full generated thought structure. I may have clicked on that button too quickly. There were 3 different options for a thought structure, for just a list of thoughts, as Shelly showed us earlier. And your list can be either, subjects or specific examples, or you can just generate a note. So 3 different ways to utilize the AI with a multitude of different combinations of settings. And I also want to highlight this. Shelley pointed this out as well, but I think it is one of the, I haven't seen an AI integration out there, tool out there that does what we're doing here. You can either accept these changes, you can browse through them and make sure it's exactly what you expected to see and want to see, or you can redo from scratch or discard. It's a huge time saver. So you don't automatically add all this new content into your brain. You might not like the results. AI is like having a really smart friend with no filter. You don't know what you're going to get back. So sometimes we just simply want to redo and take a fresh look and see if we get some different results. I'm going to go ahead and accept these. And challenges and risks. That's a great extreme distance and time. I wasn't really even thinking about the time that you would be gone. That's isolation and psychological effects. That's huge. Radiation. I didn't even think of radiation. So there's a lot of additional information in this brain that I didn't even consider previously. And now I can start honing in on where I want to perform my research. And you'll see that some of these may be even 2, 3, or 4 generations deep, colonization and exploration. So there's a lot of great content in here to really, get me going with my research. If I want to do radiation and health risks, let's actually just generate a note here. So once again, I go to a thought and I'll ask AI. And I can specifically set the content of the context, like should humans go to Mars because of radiation exposure and health risks? So if I just say radiation exposure and health risks, AI is probably assuming that I mean, while I'm sitting here at my desk on Earth, what are my radiation exposure and health risks? No, no, no. I want to tell AI, what are the radiation exposure health risks should humans ever go to Mars? So give it that context. Explore the creativity. And this is something you can actually have some fun with. Do you want to be super creative, thinking outside the box, or just hardline facts? Radiation is this percentage at whenever you're with the atmosphere that may or may not exist on Mars and so forth. So I'll just go ahead and generate a note for this topic.
And that's great. And I'm glad you're getting into notes because I want everyone to understand there were a couple questions on notes that, first of all, you can take or leave AI. The brain does not read any of your content. AI only looks at your particular thought that you type in, your
Yeah, that
query.
query.
That's it. And so but you can use that to build the thought structure, or you can just use it to take a note. So it's a very moderated approach. You can use as much or as little AI as you want in your brain.
That's
And
very
there's the
true.
notes.
Yeah.
Nice.
And you can always go back and add to that note or edit. Maybe I don't see like what
Exactly.
I see. Yeah, I can come back and modify at any time. And everything that's happening here in the web client, when I return back to the desktop will, if you synced your brain, it automatically turns on auto sync. So every 3 to 5 minutes in the background, your brain is going to sync. I'll go ahead and just force it to sync right now. So I click on the sync button and I navigate back over to that should we go to Mars? And you can see it's already there. Everything that I've just added in through AI in the web client has now been added in here to my desktop brain. And from here, I can start bringing in images into the notes, graphs, create my own tables, and continue on with my own research.
And
Now,
in terms of
yeah.
navigating and managing, I know a lot of people had questions on citations and different levels of trusted sources.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a nice way to do that is you can actually create different thought types.
Yes.
Trusted, approved. Our corporate clients would do this anyway, like for different drafts. We have a lot of finance companies that do due diligence on contracts. So actually from a legal perspective, you have a draft contract, you can have an approved contract and then a signed contract, and those can be different thought types. And you can also do tags. So I know a user that actually has a specific thought type just to type everything that all the notes that are coming coming from AI versus like her own notes. So there's a lot of ways to distinguish content, getting back to those thought types and tags. We covered a little bit of those when I was showing you the US presidents, where you can actually color code them and give them icons. For thought types, you can have one thought type per thought, and that gives you that sort of glossary. And then tags, you can have as many tags as you want, and Matt's kind of showing you that. So
Yeah,
that's
and I
another
just
interesting new kind of fusion, to use AI with tagging and typing. If you kind of really want to see, okay, well, I want a little AI in this area, I want to visually delineate what was created by, Chat GPT versus my own brain, or what CNN is saying versus what my professor, who is an expert, is saying, right? So there are ways to really look at the information and create that visual index for yourself, and granularly categorize the information.
right. And I just picked up on utilizing thought tags for that. Your thought tags could also be, let's say you're doing some research and you typically go back to, I don't know, 5, 10, 15 different books that have been written over time, or what have you. Each individual book can be a tag, so that's your citation. Like this was, whenever I find some evidence or some information, I'm submitting that. I tag it with, it came from this person, or it came from this book. In this case, I'm just using Shelley's example. Is it trusted, or is there some more research needed? Like I'm not so sure about the source here. I need to do a little bit more research.
And then
Radiation
we're
and
actually getting a
exposure.
question
Yeah.
incoming live from Peggy about, can the brain AI be restricted to a list of PDFs that I provide? With the brain's AI, the way it works is it's query based. We're actually not reading, just to clarify, any of the content in your brain. I mean, that might be something in the future if users demand it. I think that I see what you're saying, like AI to read your PDFs. No, what you would have to do is put a specific query as a thought and then hit the AI button, and then you're getting the results back. You're deliberately going to be feeding AI, and that would be in the form of a query, not a PDF.
Yeah.
So if you do have PDFs in your brain, those would kind of be separate.
Yeah.
The software is evolving. We have a very active and vocal user community. So if you want something different, Peggy, do let us know. But that's the way that would work. Just getting into some
Yeah.
real-time questions as they're coming in, Matt.
Sure. Yeah. And we should bring up, Shelley, we've mentioned a few times AI in the web client, AI in the web client. That is where the AI integration currently exists in the brain. But it's no secret. In fact, when we originally released and discussed this new fantastic AI capabilities, the creator of TheBrain, Harlan Hugh, announced that AI would be integrated into TheBrain 14, which is in active development as well.
Yeah,
So
you guys will get a copy.
yeah,
You'll be playing with 14 by the end of this year. I don't think that's going out on the limb saying that. So
yeah,
stay tuned,
yeah,
sign up for our newsletter, follow us on Twitter. And we'll, if you want to participate in beta and play with all kinds of amazing
yeah.
features. But that being said, the features we have now are just hot off the development lab. So play with those. And there's like so much you can do right now. We have barely scratched the surface.
Yeah,
And
there's
I also
certainly
want to
more to
let you know
come.
that obviously
Absolutely.
anyone who's just purchased today and continues to purchase gets a free upgrade to 14. And if you're on services, those upgrades are also complimentary. So don't wait for 14, since like we literally got AI out a couple months ago.
That's
Okay,
right. That's right.
well, Matt, we should probably jump into Q&A
Yes.
officially. We're sort of like merging into it, but before we do, since we're coming on the hour, is there any other key areas that you didn't get a chance to cover? I feel like the session just zoomed by.
Right,
Pardon,
right. Well,
pun.
once again, everyone will receive a recording of today's webinar to watch at your own speed. But also a question that came up a few times, Shelley, I noticed while you were presenting, some people had questions about like taking the information that they're putting into their brain and actually extracting that into a document.
Yes, and
Obviously, you're doing
actually,
some research, and
Rakesh wanted to
yeah,
know how to also copy just the thought structure.
yes,
Not sure if Rakesh was just referring to, so maybe copy and paste within brains
yeah,
a thought structure, but then also you can take that same copy and paste and make it an outline in documents. We have a ton of writers that love doing that as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, if we want to cover a little of copy and paste specifically in terms of into another brain and export, that would be
Sure.
lovely.
Sure.
And I'll
First,
just want to
yeah.
say really quick, because we are on the hour and a lot of you are asking if you have to leave on the hour, we will have a recording of this. You will automatically be sent the recording because you attended. We will also post it on our website probably later today or tomorrow morning. So if you have to run off, that's no problem. You can catch the rest of it on the recording. We will continue for another 10 minutes. We're going a little into overtime on this webinar because there have been so many great questions. I'm going to highlight a few of the answered questions that Juan and I got to. There was like 30 or 45 of them, so I won't be able to get to all of them, but like a few of them, because we've had a very active Q&A. And I want to thank everyone for the comments and the questions. So Matt, I'll let you kind of conclude with your
Sure.
showing outline and copy, and then we'll dive back into Q&A. And if you guys have any last minute burning questions, get them into Q&A now, and we'll see how many we can throw
We'll
at
see
Matt
if we
in
can
10
get there. Yeah.
minutes. Okay,
Great. Well,
cool.
the question that came up, and it's certainly relevant to today's topic, you've created this great research brain. Now you need to submit this to your boss, your peers, your colleagues, and they might not use the brain. You know, they're just waiting to get a handbook of the research that you've done. So now you need something on paper, and you want to capture an outline of your brain. What I'm going to do is control click on a thought within my brain. If you're on a Mac, you would command click, and it adds it into the selection box. I can control click on individual thoughts that I like. As you can see, it places a little rotating outline. We call those marching ants around selected thoughts. Control click. Once again, we'll unselect. So it's like a toggle, select and unselect with the control or command clicking. But in this case, I want to say, this particular thought with all of the child thoughts down below, we went several generations deep on this one. And this is what I need to turn in to my professor or to my colleagues as we're putting together our project. So I'm going to add to my selection box. I'm going to click on edit, select related thoughts. And in this case, every child word thought for, we'll say, 5 generations deep will be added into the selection box. Suddenly, as you can see, there are 47 thoughts over there that I've selected. I can right click on this, and there's a lot that you can do from here. I can assign all of these to the same thought type or the same thought tag. Shelley mentioned earlier, oh, this area of my brain needs further research. All of these thoughts need to be, further research is needed, or all of these thoughts are in reference to a location or whatever the case may be, a certain thought type or tag that we've created. I can actually create a document out of this. So I can actually build this, and this is a very linear document, just a list of all of this content. And I can choose whether I want this to be in a PDF, Markdown, if I want to include page numbers and so forth, or the footers, multi-table force, links and mentions. There we go. So all of the links and mentions that may exist with below, unlinked mentions and so forth. So all of that can be included in that document. In this case, for this example, let's just do this. I'm going to copy these as a text outline. So I've got that text outline on my clipboard. Now I'm just going to open up, let's just open up Notepad because it's super, super easy. And there it is. So here I have Notepad, and I've got these texts as a text outline. I'm going to right click and paste. So here I've preserved the structure of this particular brain. All the child thoughts under should humans go to Mars are tabbed over one time, tabbed over twice are the grandchildren or the thoughts below that, and so forth. So I can include, there was an option there for text outline with notes or just text outline. The question specifically came up, I don't want to include all the different file attachments, just the thought names. This is a great way to do it, a really easy way to, give someone an overview. Here's the research I'm doing. If you want to know more, come visit this brain online, and then share the URL. So there's a lot of different ways that you can extract this data out of your brain to be shared with others, or to be reviewed in other ways. And Shelley specifically mentioned bringing content into another brain. It's no hidden secret that you can create more than one brain database. Shelley and I have been jumping in and out of different brain databases throughout the webinar today. Let's say I find something that's really, really just some fantastic information that I want to move into another brain. Actually, I'm going to jump into Shelley's teaching and learning brain. And here's David Allen's Getting Things Done and some research there. I'm going to control click on this thought. I'm going to control click on the gate and grab the child thoughts down below, just one generation away. I'll right click and copy those 7 thoughts. And notice I didn't say thought outline. I'm just copying those thoughts. And once again, my space brain is now starting to get cluttered with some other topics, but underneath Mars, I'm going to have a little GTD area. And underneath that, I'll right click and paste those 7 thoughts. David Allen's book on getting things done, and all the child thoughts, all the web content came along with it. The notes that I may have had, the graphics, the files, the attachments are all there. I've copied content from one brain into another. And then finally, I'll throw this in. You can also copy links to different brains as well. If I don't want to copy all the content, I just want to have a link from brain A into brain B. Every thought that you create in your brain has its own local thought URL. If you sync it to the cloud, you also have a web thought URL. So you can have a link that takes you directly to a specific thought online, or a specific thought in another brain in the desktop application. And once again, I'll just grab another random thought, the charting method. I'm going to right click and I am going to copy local thought URL. Then I'll go ahead and navigate away and even close this brain. And in my Mars brain, I'm going to right click down here and paste. So I've got a link to the charting method thought in another brain. The brain follows a simple rule. It launches any file attachment in its native application. A Word document, you click on it from the Plex, it's going to load up in Word, or whatever your .doc application is for viewing .doc files. And this is no different. It's a thought in a brain, so it launches the brain and takes me directly to the specific thought within that brain. So a few other things for you to think about if you're one of those folks that use more than one brain database and you want to jump back and forth between the two.
All right,
Shelley,
great.
yeah. Any other
Okay.
questions there?
Yes. We had a question from Gil. I remain confused about backlinks. So maybe a word about backlinks and how they work.
Absolutely.
Actually, somebody also asked about exporting notes. I don't think we have time to get into that, but I don't know if you want to comment if they just want their note structure.
You know what? The notes, to export a note, I'll just highlight this button right here. Anytime you have a note and you want to turn that into a PDF, you've got some graphics in that note, you've got a lot of content, you've got an outline, a table of contents, and you want to turn that into a PDF. You know, it's the synopsis or the summary of all of your research all on one note. Time to turn that into your professor. Click on export, and you can export it to a document, a PDF, or even HTML if you'd like. So it opens up in your default web browser that particular note. So that's if you're exporting a single note. If you're exporting a large group of notes, it's the process I showed you earlier. Control clicking a group of thoughts, creating a document, and including notes.
And I guess before we get to backlinks,
yeah,
we should mention on app.thebrain, the little eye view for those of people, and there are some, and it's perfectly cool that literally just use the brain as like notes, a notes application on steroid, and they don't want to see the Plex. We're talking about visual information management, but people visualize differently. So if you're just exporting because you're finding for maybe your certain audience you're presenting to, you don't want to show the Plex. When you go online, and Matt, I don't know if you want to show this real quick, you can show sort of our automatically created directory style outline view that just has more of a basic menu style of your parent-child thoughts. So it's functioning like a menu. So that's another way a lot of people are using that. They just want sort of a bare bones classic navigation style to their research brain, their knowledge base. Just a great feature. It's a little bit of a feature that people don't realize because so many people get so enamored with the visual components. I just want to, since we're going the other direction on exporting and talking about notes and just the backlinks, really emphasize that this is a very functional, a view that a lot of our users like to use as well.
So. Right. So if you remember, I've turned the Plex view off. So I'm in the outline view online. So this is my web browser. I'm on that should we go there thought that I created underneath Mars. These are my sibling thoughts. Remember that I created Getting Things Done, Edgar Allan Poe. And down below, a child thought. Should humans go to Mars? That's the thought. Here are all the child thoughts down below. I think I clicked on challenges and risks. And isolation, extreme distance, limited resources. So all of the child thoughts down below, I can easily get to those and continue navigating through the brain in a text view. And at any time, if I want to bring the Plex back, I can just click on the Plex and bring it right back into view. So that's a great and helpful feature. Shelly and I think Shelly would agree, we're old school. We love the Plex. We know how it works and love to navigate around. If you're new to the brain, maybe you do want to navigate using that sort of plain text view until you get more familiar with it, certainly. And back to the questions about backlinks and mentions.
Back to backlinks.
Yeah, back to backlinks. So the important thing to remember is that first you'll have an unlinked mention. The brain is going to tell you there is a thought that exists with this particular name in it. And here's, let's find, I'm going to use Shakespeare again, if that's okay. So let's go back to my different plays. And that is literature, and I'll go into comedy and A Midsummer Night's Dream. So anytime something is underlined in with this dotted blue line, and that's a color setting in your theme, you can certainly change that, but that tells me that there's another thought in this brain for Hippolyta. And as I'm typing and I type out the word Hippolyta, that's a very unique thought name, a character name in this case, but I can right click, it's an unlinked mention, and it tells me that I can either activate that thought or create a permanent link to that thought. So let's just go ahead and activate it. And I go right to the Hippolyta thought, and I learn all about who Hippolyta is in my little case study, another thought for that I've created. Now, if I want to turn that unlinked mention into a backlink, it simply is the process of right-clicking, and I create a link. So now it's not underlined in blue, it's sort of hyperlinked. You can see it's appearing in blue. And this is a feature that can be turned on and off. I double click on my settings. So the first click verifies I want to go to that thought. That can be turned off. So I can just more easily get to a backlink and go directly to that thought and click to go directly to Hippolyta. And if I scroll down to the bottom, I can see any place where Hippolyta is showing up as an unlinked mention, and now where she's appearing as a backlink. So a backlink is quite simply an unlinked mention that has permanently just been changed into a link. It's a personal choice. You can go in and hide all of your unlinked mentions. If you only want to see backlinks appearing within your brain and not all of these unlinked mentions, there's a lot for Hippolyta. As you can see, if I don't want to see that, I'm going to turn off my viewing of unlinked mentions. And so now I just see wherever Hippolyta is a backlink. So the most important locations for the appearance of Hippolyta in this particular brain. Hopefully that helps you understand. It's a matter of just remembering, first it's a backlink, or excuse me, I said it wrong. First, it's an unlinked mention, and they just appear as you're typing within the brain and you type the name of another note. You have just created an unlinked mention. And it's up to you to decide if you want to permanently turn that into a backlink within your brain for easy access back to that other thought.
Great. And then we're almost on the edge of time, but Manuel had a question, and I want to return to this as well because I was going to show document management and drag and drop, but I actually think Zoom prevented me from dragging and dropping a document into my brain because I just
Oh,
tried it
sure.
after
Sure.
I shot presenter to you, and it worked fine. So I'm not sure if it's a Zoom thing, but Manuel is asking about doing version control
Oh,
in the
sure.
brain.
Yeah.
And that's very important because we're talking a lot about AI and knowledge base, but document management is huge, and a visual file management repository. In terms of that, for syncing, you actually do want to store those files internally to the brain. And you can do version control with
Absolutely.
the save as. So maybe
Yeah.
if if you just have an existing document, trust us, drag and drop works. Drag and drop into the desktop. It may not work on
Absolutely.
Zoom right now, Matt. So just
I'll
you don't
find
have to
out.
go there. I don't want to put you. I don't want to throw you on the under the bus, but maybe you could show like how to version, or we could talk about how to version a
Sure.
document. And it's great
Absolutely.
because when you have those multiple versions in the content area, you can actually write little notes like, this version was a little more creative. This version was approved by legal. So I love
Yeah.
using the brain for version control.
Version
Thanks,
control.
Manuel, for bringing
Absolutely.
up that question. Couldn't
Sure.
really show it because Zoom was doing something to my desktop. So, but
Okay.
so anyway, Matt, I'll see how far you get
We'll
on
see how
this.
far we go. Yeah. So first off, I want to point out if you have the brain open and click on options and go down to preferences. If you're on a Mac, you would click on the brain preferences. And on the behavior tab, you can specify how you want drag and drop to behave for your environment. When I drag and drop a file, I like to move that file internally into the brain. The default setting out of the box, when you install the brain, it's going to copy files into the brain. So the original is still there wherever that location was, and you've brought a copy into the brain. Or you can just link to those files. Sometimes you're on a network and you've got access to a shared drive where everyone is collaborating and updating documents. You don't want to move that file into your brain and thus no one else has access to it. You just want to link to that file. So when you launch it from the brain, it launches the most recent version of that file out on your shared drive. So we give you these options to make the brain work for you in your environment. Like I said, I like to move files into the brain. So let's see what happens when I grab a file. And I do have just a sample document, Midsummer Night's Dream file, and I drag and drop into the brain. As you can see, the file is no longer there on my desktop. It has been moved internally into my brain. And now I can launch this attachment. I think this is just a sample document, but it loads up Word. And there it is. It's actually the contents of this note, just a sample document that I use for testing. But there it all is, the full document, easily accessible. Let's say I make some changes. This is sort of my draft, my overview of maybe putting it on as a child's play or something like that. So I want to say this is draft number 2 for the children's play. Now, instead of just saving this and overwriting that internal attachment inside my brain, as Shelly mentioned, let's do version control. I want to keep the original because I made a bunch of changes. And so I want to keep each version. I'll just say save as. By default, Word goes to save any file you have open in the directory where it was launched from. So I'm still in the directory, the containing folder for this
So you're in
thought.
that thought folder. So in
Yeah,
essence, you can do save as back into your brain, do as many versions of as you want, and you'll have a lovely listing of versions on your content menu, and you can add notes about the versions and what you're writing about too.
there we go.
I
Yeah.
love that, and I'm glad it worked for you, Matt. I don't know.
And I'll take
Whatever.
my note, version 2.
It's all good. It does, and it does work. And Gil, I guess follow-up question is, can you link to OneDrive? Yes, you can link to OneDrive. You can
Yeah,
link to Dropbox. Just keep in mind though, when you are linking to those places, it is a link. We're not then syncing. You don't expect us to take that file from OneDrive and sync it to your mobile device. So you're going to have to look at, and every user's different, the benefits of storing externally in your brain or internally. If you want those brains, if you're syncing to multiple or those files, and you're syncing to multiple computers or users, you'll want to store those documents internally. But we also have a number of corporate users that are even have some links to shared corporate directory drives and SharePoint and, all these different types of file sharings. But that's something that we're happy to discuss with you. Basically though, if you do want to sync your files within the brain and have access to them on your mobile phone, those would have to be stored internally in the brain.
That's right. But the links work great as well, just because,
yes, they do.
Sometimes you don't want to, this question just came up recently. You don't want to move that file internally into the brain. Maybe it's huge. Maybe it's a video file and it's,
exactly.
10 gigs. No one wants a, 10 gig copy of a 10 gig file, on this computer and on this computer and on your phone and on that file. Store it in OneDrive, store it in Google Drive, link to it from your brain. Everything that goes online has a URL associated with it. So it's a great way to just, store your data in a secure file that's designed for just simply storing linear structures of documents and link to them in your brain so that some machine, you don't need to launch that giant file, but you want to reference it and you want to link to it from a thought in your brain that other projects you're working on are connected to. So
all right.
Really
and
depends on the
was
scenario.
Asking about Google Drive. Yes, Google Drive, all the same, basically any relative path. But just like a URL. But I think a theme that's emerging from this particular webinar is just sort of a very moderated, eclectic approach to building your brain. Like, for instance, when we're talking about AI, you don't have to do your whole brain in AI. Maybe you want a little piece of it in AI. Documents, you probably want a few of your main documents stored internally, especially if you're a writer, so you can write wherever on the go. But maybe those larger files, as Matt mentioned, are on OneDrive. And that's the great thing about, in essence, we are a knowledge base. We are an aggregator. So we're not asking for you to necessarily store all your information in the brain. You can if you want to. But you don't have to, and there's no limit to the number of thoughts and notes that you can make. So these brains get very large and they have links to a wide variety of sources, and that's the power of kind of bringing it all together in a way that is your perspective. It's a curated view of your knowledge. It's not just my linear file drive that offers me no creativity or no ability to see, how Shakespeare relates to maybe street language today. These types of connections can't be made in a search result list. So I think that's it. A lot of people are saying, thanks. Will the recording be available? We have to drop out. We're 23 minutes over into overtime.
Oh, wow. Time flies when you're having fun. I didn't realize it.
End it. We're going to cut it off, but obviously, we're having fun. We could continue. I should point out that Matt is doing 101 tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. So if you have a brain, I think Forbes was talking about building a conference brain of all the topics, panelists, and points of divergence, which is cool. I could see how CNN has different people talking and, some people view this and that. That's a great example. We can cover that tomorrow in 101 if we couldn't get to all these types of questions. But I think with that, we're going to end today's session. Matt, is there any other final words of wisdom or other tips and tricks for building the ultimate research brain that we have not covered in this marathon session?
I would simply add that you can always go back and edit and modify. We really didn't get a chance today to talk about some of the things that we cover in our Brain 202 webinars. It's a whole nother webinar. You're building this massive brain. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of gardening. You certainly can. So you can visit our website, look for the Brain 202 to figure out how to split brains up into smaller topic-specific brains, step-by-step, merging brains together, and going in and gardening and cleaning up different brain databases that you've created. So never have a fear of, oh gosh, should I add this content or not? Go ahead and add it. You can always come back and modify and change it at a later date. And you can always reach out to us at support@thebrain.com. We're happy to hear from you and answer any additional questions you have in the
Yeah,
future.
we have live chat on our website. Real human beings answering emails. They're not bots. Some of you, like Juan on today's call. Thanks, Juan, for the Q&A. He's
No
in
problem.
silent mode, but maybe he's grinning
There
right
he is.
now. Yeah. But yeah, and of course, we love talking about this stuff, but I think we're gonna end it. So I want to thank everyone for visual learning and discovery. I know that John wanted the piano brain. We can tweet that out. It's a great example as well. So we'll link to some examples and right into support if there's any brain that pretty much all the brains we showed today weren't that personal. So most of them are public. So if you want to link to a particular brain, we can probably get that to you. Oh, a lot of people, this was interesting, wanted to know about biblical and Christianity brains. I don't actually have one, but I know a ton of users that have created. So I'll have to dig like through support or on public brains and see if we can find those.
I would say
I'll
that
check
would
with
be a great
Brigitte. I think
question.
she knows,
Yeah,
but there was like literally 2 people who asked for that, which is interesting.
that might
So
be a
if you
good
do have a topic that you
place to
want to
search
know
on the
about
forums.
on the forums,
The
right?
forums
Okay.
might be a great place to find out people that are, share the same mindset and have created a brain that they're willing to share on a particular topic.
Okay. Well, I think with that, we're going to end. Wish you well in your visual explanation or exploration of new topics and ideas. And we hope to see you on future Brain Technologies web events. Stay tuned for more.
Matt, just
And
before
thanks
you end the
everyone for
call,
joining us today.
a lot of users were asking if the Q&A discussions would be available on the recordings.
Oh, there he is. Is that
There's
Juan?
Juan.
Is that
The voice
you?
of Juan.
Hi. We're just getting silly. This will probably be edited out at the end.
This part will be edited
like,
out.
what?
Yes. But
What?
for those of you that
Okay.
are still on the call, the QA, the answering of all these questions will certainly be there. The QA itself will not be part of the recording.
I don't know. We could
If we didn't get to a question, we will follow up with you via email. We always review the questions. Here's one.
But to Juan's question and
Yeah.
other people's questions, I saw that they actually, and this might be an action item for us, to take all the questions that everyone asked, give the official brain answer, and like publish it on our blog. Yeah.
Sure,
so
we can certainly
I
do
know
that.
what people are asking, and
Yeah.
we may be able to do that. I'll say
Sure.
may.
Thanks, Juan.
Okay.
There you have it.
Anything else, Juan?
I think that's it. Yeah, people were really
Okay.
interested.
All
It was a great
right. Well,
webinar.
good. All right.
Great.
We'll go forth. Build the ultimate research brain. Get Matt's Shakespeare brain and do it in iambic pentameter or whatever.
There you
I
go.
think we're
I like
going to
that.
close our session.
Thanks everyone
All right.
for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye,
bye.
everyone.